In this lesson, you will learn data science by doing a lab session. In the lab session, you will submit the Titanic competition on Kaggle. The exercise will be executed using RStudio on AWS. During this lab session, you will deploy RStudio on AWS, copy the train and test datasets from AWS S3 buckets to RStudio, clean the dataset for missing values of age and fare, learn the model using random forest, predict the unknown values in the test set, and then submit the results to Kaggle. Deploying RStudio on AWS. It is assumed that you already have an AWS account. You have generated a key pair on AWS and have the public key on your machine. Security group has already been created on AWS. You will create the RStudio on a T2.micro EC2 instance with a 10 gig hard disk attached to it and will use a community AMI RStudio by Aslet. You start by launching an EC2 instance. Search in the community AMIs for RStudio by Aslet. Choose the 0.99 version. Ten gig of storage is adequate. You can add a tag. Choose one of the existing security group, All Traffic MEC, which is a wide open security group. Launch the instance and select an existing key pair. In my case, it is my EC2 key. It will take some time for the instance to come up, so we'll pause the video for now. Now that the instance has launched, you can pick up the IP address from here for the instance. Open a new tab, connect to the IP address, and initially it will come with the default username and password for login, RStudio and RStudio, and then you will be inside the RStudio console. The various sections of this user interface are the place where we have the .r files, a console, place where we have the environment variables, and then the directory where we have the files. So we're going to, first of all, create a new file, titanic.r, for storing the R program. You see that this file has come over here, and this is the location of the file. Now, generally in terms of how we execute over here, you can come to this window and then use Control L to clear the screen. Then you can choose the commands which you have entered and then use Control R to execute that. Sorry, you need to use Control Enter to execute this. Select all the commands, Control Enter. And what has happened right now is that the two files, titanic.train and titanic.test, have been loaded over here. These have been loaded from the test URL and the train URL, whose values we had entered over here and which are actually stored in S3 buckets in AWS. It is important to periodically store the file as you are changing it. Control S goes ahead and saves the file, and then subsequent to saving, you can see that the red and the star here goes away. The next thing we are going to do is that the embarked row or embarked variable has some missing values, and we'll put the value S in the places wherever there is a missing value. So here we are going to replace the missing values of embarked with S. Again, we do that using Control Enter, and that has happened right now. Save the file again by Control S. Now we are going to do categorical casting except for the column survived. We're going to do that for column P class, column sex, column embarked, which is the next step now. So here we are doing casting for class, for P class, for sex, and for embark. So now we need to execute these lines by again selecting and pressing Control Enter. So the categorical casting has now been done. Save using Control S. Next, we are going to clean the missing values of age. In order to do this, we'll initially identify and remove the outliers, create a model for age using parameters P class, sex, sibling, spouse, parent, child, and embarked. And finally, we will use the model in order to predict the value of age for those locations where the age is missing. So let's start by first identifying and removing the outliers. Control Enter. So the outliers have been removed. Next, we go ahead and create a model for age using P class, sex, sib_sp, parch, and embarked. Select all the lines, Control Enter. So the model has now been created. Now that the model has been created, we'll go ahead and predict the age using the model for those lines where the age is not available. So let's go ahead and do that now. Control Enter again. So age is now modeled. Let's then finally make sure we save this file, Control S. In a very similar manner, the way we modeled for age and filled in the missing values for age, we will now do that for fair as well. So we will find, we'll clean the missing values of fair. And then predict the value of fair for those places where it is missing. In this case, we know it is missing only in one row. However, we'll follow the same methodology here as well. So in order to execute on this, we have to select the lines and then do a control enter. So it has now gone ahead and uh, filled in the missing values of fare as well. Now what we'll do is we will take the Titanic.full and split the data set back to train and test. And then we will prepare ourselves to use random forest to identify who is going to survive among the remaining passengers. So let's go ahead and do that now. So here we are splitting the data set. Now we have to execute this splitting lines. So again choose that and press Control Enter. In order to predict the remaining members of test and whether they are going to survive or not, we initially need to install package random forest, create a model from the training set, and then predict using the model for the test data set. And then we will create a new data frame with passenger ID and whether he has survived for the test data set, because that's how you need to actually provide a file to Kaggle to submit for the competition. So let's go ahead and do that. First, we'll start with installing the packages itself. Control S to save the file. Then we have these commands over here for installing random forest and for calculating the survived passengers in the Titanic.test and subsequently creating a frame, a data frame with passenger ID and survived as elements. Control Enter again to execute. Since random forest was not there, it is now loading random forest, and now it has also created the data frame output.df, which has passenger ID and whether he has survived or not. Now you can check the output.df, which has 418 objects, which is for the test set, and it has two variables, passenger ID and survived. Finally, we will actually write this into a CSV file, which will be used to submit to Kaggle for the competition. So let's first go ahead and save the file as it is so far, and then we'll write to a CSV file. Now you will find in the files directory over here that this Kaggle submission.csv is created, which is the file which is really used in order to submit to the Kaggle competition. Now we will download the file to submit it to Kaggle for the competition. So we select the file, More, Export. The name of the file is Kaggle submission.csv, and I'm going to download it to here. So if I go over here and see in this particular folder, I can see Kaggle submission.csv file, which is over here. Now this is the file we are going to use now to submit to Kaggle. So in order to submit to Kaggle, you log into Kaggle with your credentials, click on Submit Predictions, and this is the prediction for Titanic machine learning with disaster. And then when you come into submit, you have to upload your submissions file, which we currently have in the downloads folder. So if you come over here, you will see Kaggle submission 1.csv. We upload it, which has got uploaded over here. And I actually have uploaded a similar file earlier. So this is an upload which did the age and fair modeling and random forest for the so this is just a comment I am entering over here, and subsequent to entering the comment you can make a submission. When you make a submission, Kaggle will score your submission and then it will tell you where you are. Now, since earlier I had done a very similar submission, so it's giving me the same value, and the submission is not an improvement of the best score, but this is the mechanism in which you can actually submit to Kaggle. So what we accomplished in this tutorial so far, we deployed RStudio on AWS from scratch. We copied the training and test data sets from S3 buckets. We cleaned the data set using model and replaced missing values of age and fair. We learned the model on the training set after the clean data set in terms of how you can predict whether a passenger will survive or not using random forest. And we predicted the unknown values in the test set and submitted the results to Kaggle. This concludes this session. We will follow up with a more detailed explanation of the separate steps and how to automate some of these methods. Thank you.